What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. I just finished watching When They See Us, a mini series directed by Ava DuVernay or DuVernay. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it, but this mini series details the pain, the hell that 5 young men went through after being wrongfully convicted of raping and brutally attacking a young white woman in 1989 in Central Park in New York City. Let me just say, y'all, this movie had me so emotionally distraught. Tears running down my face. My lady looking at me, seeing tears run down my face because this movie hit me in my heart, in my gut. And this movie exemplifies the distrust that African American people, black people, Hispanic people have in the justice system in the United States. The distrust that they have in law enforcement. It's a real thing. It's a real thing, for real, for real. When you watch this movie, you can't tell me this is not a real thing. You know, I hear so many people say, a lot of people feel like black people are exaggerating when we talk about our fear of interaction with police officers, because we just don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how the interaction is going to go. We don't know one wrong move, something can go left at any moment. Being in the wrong place at the wrong time, you can be put and placed at the scene of a crime you did not commit. We saw that with Khalif Browder. We saw all these different things happen. So many young men, so many young black men, so many young Hispanic men been put in situations where they had no business being put because they had nothing to do with it. Seriously, had nothing to do with it. And I can just imagine the grief of these parents, right? You raise this young black boy, this young brown boy, you raise these children to grow up to be respectful kids. You watch them grow. You watch them learn new things. You watch your seed. You watch it develop into a beautiful, lively spirit. And you watch them to one day see them being snatched away in an instant. Snatched away, their innocence snatched away because the law, because the justice system failed them. Failed them tremendously. Like, I'm watching this documentary and I am enraged. I'm like, oh my God. I can only imagine being a young, one of the young boys, what was his name? Kevin Richardson. Kevin was 14 years old. These kids was 14, 15 years old. They were coerced into saying they committed a crime they did not commit, and they knew they did not commit. But because they were so young, so fearful of their lives being taken away, so fearful they just wanted to go home, they admitted to something that they did not do because they were forced to. They were intimidated. They were slapped around, beat up, intimidated, yelled at, cursed at, with fear, like trembling, with fear in them because they didn't know what was going to happen. All they knew is, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. Police officers got these kids in interrogation rooms without feeding them, without them going to go use the restroom, not feeding them for hours, got them in there all night, their parents not there. We even saw one young man, Yusuf Salam. At one point, they said, oh, well, Yusuf waived his rights to an attorney. How the hell can a young minor waive his rights to an attorney and you allow him to do so knowing he's a minor? It just shows you how crooked everything was going on in this situation. His mother like, hold on, wait a second. You can't do that, and you know you can't do that. These kids have no comprehension of their Miranda rights. They don't know what that is as a young kid. They don't know that they have the right to talk to an attorney. You 14 years old. It's easy for us to say we know it because we got Law and Order on TV for us to watch. All these different judge shows and all these different criminal shows for us to watch, and we can see how the justice system works. But back then, it was nothing for them kids to go off of. They were babies. And you got law enforcement so thirsty for a conviction, that they were willing to create a scenario to create a scenario where puzzle pieces did not fit to put them boys behind bars, to put them behind bars. DNA evidence not linking them to anything, and they know it. They got a sock with sperm with semen on it. Doesn't match any of the boys, and they know it. They know it, and still, that don't mean that doesn't mean they don't have anything to do with it. All that just proves is it's another guy involved. Really? Really? They knew this. They knew they withheld this information. They knew them boys was not linked to it and did not care because they were that thirsty for a conviction. They were willing to say whatever black boy was around, he had to do it. Whatever Hispanic boy was around, I say Hispanic because Raymond Santana Jr. was Hispanic. Whatever Hispanic boy was around at the time, you did it. You did it. Okay, come on. The vulnerable population, whatever, y'all around? Okay, they had to do it. Come on, just get them. We got them. It's cool. We got whatever black boy we saw, whatever Hispanic boy we saw, bring them in. It's cool. Lock them up and throw away the key. Damn. Really? So ask yourself, right? When people say things like, black people complain about nothing, we talk about oppression and we're not really oppressed and we're not going through slavery now, so what are we complaining about? What are we complaining about? You see these cases as of recently. You see what's happening. You see what's happening out here, right? You saw what happened to Khalid Browder. You saw what happened to these young men. You saw what happened to Alton Sterling. You saw what happened to Philando Castile. You saw what happened to Eric Garner. Over and over again, we got these instances where either a young man is wrongfully convicted of a crime he did not commit, or they're getting brutalized, they're getting killed. They're getting killed, being unarmed, and following a police officer's order. So when people say, all you got to do is comply, well, these young men complied with what the police officers wanted them to do. And the police officers tricked them into thinking that if they said what they wanted to say, they would go home. Tricked them so much that you had Antron. What's my man's name? I got to look up his name. Antron McCrae's own father. He's so scared of law enforcement. Law enforcement got that black father so scared, so fearful. He's so scared of interactions with them. He just said, look, they can kill us. They can put us behind bars. Like, look, man, we just say what they want you to say so you can go home. They say you can go home. We got to believe them, right? We got to believe them. If all you got to do is admit it and sign your name here, you going home. He was so upset he threw a temper tantrum. The son said, I'm not admitting to something that I didn't do. Rightfully so, standing his ground. I'm not admitting to something I did not do. But the father snapped because he just so scared for his son and said, if you don't do what the police tell you to do, you going to jail. Do what they want you to do so you can go home. And they tricked him into thinking he was going to go home. Got them playing classic good cop, bad cop to make it seem like, this police officer is really on your side. No, he's not. Got them boys just making up stuff. So we know he had to do it. So what was the weapon? Either a brick or a pipe or something. And he just like the young boy, like, whatever you want me to say, officer. Okay, a pipe. Okay, and you got a pipe. And what were you doing there? I wasn't doing anything. Oh, no, that's not going to sound good. You did something, right? So the boy's just throwing stuff out there just to get the pressure off of him because he feels the walls closing in on him as a kid. As a kid, got the walls closing in on him. And then you got people that, this is the thing. You got people that seeing this and say, them boys had to do that. See, it doesn't matter what. You don't even have to go through due process. You don't have to go through, the correct legal process. People in the court of public opinion, you're guilty. You're guilty, and your name is drug through the mud, like drug through mud. In this instance, drug through mud, drug through a pile of dog boo-boo. Really. Because that smear on your name, that is a stain that is incredibly hard to wipe away. Not only are you someone who brutalizes women, you're a rapist. A rapist, right? You got Donald Trump taking out an ad for them to bring back the death penalty to kill these boys. Kill them. And if their families got to read this about their children, their families, their friends, then you got everybody in the neighborhood looking at their mothers like, your son's rapist. Your son's rapist. Then they got to go to prison with a rape jacket on them. Not a literal jacket, but the rape term is put on their back. They labeled rapists, and everybody know in jail. I haven't been to prison, and I never plan on going. But in prison, they always say being tagged a A rapist or a child molester is the worst thing you can happen to you. You're gonna get brutalized, and that is exactly what happened to Corey Wise got brutalized, and I feel for Corey because the only thing he was doing was going with Yusuf Salam, his friend, because he didn't want his friend to go down there by himself. He didn't want him to go down there by himself and his mother kill him. Not literally, but his mother be upset. He wanted to go down there with him, with his friend, and make sure his friend was okay. Name wasn't even on the list of suspects, and none of them kids' names should have been on the list of suspects. Name wasn't even on the list. He goes down there, he gets more years than any one of them, and he's 16 years old, so he gets immediately sent to Rikers Island, where he's beat up, harassed, guards letting him get beat up and jumped, not caring because in their eyes, he's a rapist, and the rapists are the scum of the earth. The scum of the earth. And it's a thing too, man. I cannot ignore how predatory white feminism played a role in these boys getting convicted and having their lives snatched away. People looked at this crime and say, you know what, man, this young white lady, this young sweet white lady, how could these boys do this? How could these boys do this? They didn't even care about finding out who actually did it. We gotta lock somebody up for this crime against this young white woman. We gotta lock somebody up for this woman. She got brutalized by these black boys, this Latino young man. They had to do it. It don't matter if they did it or not. Somebody gotta pay. Somebody gotta pay. And they had to pay for it when they knew they didn't do it. No evidence points to it. They making up scenarios. Not even the time stamps are just all off. They just making up times to put them at the scene of the crime. The boys admitted it after being coerced, and they're saying it, and they were saying that the stuff happened nowhere near the park, miles away from the park. And they're like, how is that possible? But it doesn't matter. They piecing the information together to get these boys locked away for good. And Linda Fairstein, we're gonna talk about her, the prosecutor. She was just so determined to put these boys behind bars. So determined. She was like, didn't let nothing stop her. Nothing stop her. And let me say this too, because she getting all the backlash, because she the one that led, had the term wild and come up and looking like, okay, we're going to use this term to mask the boys as irrational, wild, psychopathic, just wild young boys, just ready to just commit crimes and ready to do harm to this young woman. They use that phrase as the term to coin these young men as animals, animalistic, right? She knew that the DNA didn't match, and all she kept saying was that, it just means that it's another boy that was there. That doesn't mean they're not guilty. And she knew what she was doing. She knew it. And even after Matias Reyes came and the real rapist came and admitted, she still was in denial, saying that, you know what, she didn't apologize. She still was in denial, saying that all it does was prove it was another young boy with them. They all were together. That doesn't say those boys didn't do it. And she talked about how much of a great investigation was done while she's writing all these bestseller novels, making her good money, right? So now after this miniseries comes out and everybody knows who she is, they go to her social media and they go off on her, as they should. And she can't take the heat. She can't take the heat for, a couple of hours that they was dishing it to her. But yet these boys have to live for the rest of their lives, with going to prison wrongfully, being harassed, brutalized in prison like Corey Wise, having to register as a sex offender after getting out. And Corey didn't get out until Matias Reyes admitted to it. All the other boys got out. The other 4 boys got out and had to register as a sex offender, knowing that they did not commit the crime. So you got them like forever tagged as a rapist. And, they got to live with it. They had to live with being in prison for all them years. You can't live with some backlash for your wrongdoings. For your heinous behavior. You can't live with that for a couple of hours, and you got to run and hide from it. Let's talk about that. That's something, ain't it? You expected them boys to live with going to prison for something they didn't do, but you can't live with the ridicule for being rightfully criticized for your heinous, despicable, wicked ways. That's crazy, man. I couldn't believe it, man. So all that time they was trying to create a story or create a scenario for all these 5 boys to be connected to this crime. They could have been out searching for Matias Reyes, the real rapist. And Matias Reyes' DNA was found at the crime scene. At the time of his confession, he was serving a life sentence for raping 3 other women near Central Park, in addition to raping and killing a pregnant woman. And they said he gouged her eyes out with a butter knife, all type of heinous stuff. And he did that rape on that pregnant woman 4 months after the Central Park rape. He raped her in her apartment, right? So all that time, you trying to coerce or create a story and coerce these young men into saying that they did it and get them to write down confessions, and you could have been stopping the other rapes from occurring in the first place. Oh my God. Just despicable. And these young men, after Matias Reyes admitted to the rapings, they received like a $41 million settlement from New York City, the largest settlement in New York City history. That still ain't enough. Still ain't enough. Their reputation was dragged through the mud and just, oh my God, man. Innocence taken away from them. Corey Wise went into prison at 16 years old. Listen, 16 with a rape jacket on him. Labeled a rapist with a rape label on him. And they had to survive all the harsh conditions. It's ridiculous, man. It is ridiculous. It's really ridiculous and it's sickening. And I'm just like, oh my God, man. Really? Really? I couldn't deal, man. I couldn't deal. I was so furious. So furious at that. And then the crazy thing about it is they get out of prison because they got they have to register as a sex offender. They went into jail for a crime they didn't commit. So they labeled as an ex-con. They can't find a job, which increases recidivism. And Raymond Santana Jr. actually ends up going to prison because he's selling drugs because he can't find a job. Nobody will hire him because he was a convicted rapist, convicted felon. They not hiring him. Hell no. Nobody's trusting him. So he had to go in the streets and make illegal money. And then which ended up getting him sent right back to prison, which increases the recidivism rate and shows that these kids were wrongfully convicted of a crime, and when they got out of jail, it's meant for them to go back to prison. To go back to prison eventually, because nobody want to hire them and give them no job or no resources to survive. And that's exactly what these young men had to do in prison, survive, and survive after the fact. Come on, man. Get the hell out of here, man. I mean, I had tears flowing down my eyes, and I was just like, my heart was hurting for these young men so bad, hurting for them, man. These young men were innocent kids, had their innocence taken away from them and have to grow up in prison. Grow up in prison. Corey Wise had his brother die when he was in prison in solitary confinement, where it's designed for you to go crazy. He's hallucinating, seeing things, talking to himself, because he got to be in solitary confinement or else he's going to get beat and harassed every single time from people because he has his rape label on him. And he can't shake it because he's involved in one of the most famous crimes in New York City history at the time. So they know him and they know his face and they know his name. And they waiting for him when he come to prison. He getting transferred to different prisons. Like, for real. Like, man, this whole film, man, just had me just like, wow, man. But I'm glad that Ava DuVernay, she's made this film to increase the dialogue and discussion about this being a real issue amongst Black and brown people. This is a real issue, man. The justice system not working in favor of Black and brown people and working against them, against us. And it's a real thing. It's not a figment of Black people's imagination. It's a real thing. I'm a Black man. I ain't never committed a crime in my life. Went to school, did all the quote unquote right things to do. Went to school, got degrees, several degrees. Went and got me a job and living living life as a law-abiding citizen. But at the end of the day, when police around, I'm never easy. Because I know, I've seen it. You cannot do nothing and you just be in the wrong place at the wrong time and anything could happen. Anything could happen. And I always was nervous. I always was nervous around police officers. Like I always was nervous around them. You know, because I've seen it happen in my neighborhood. I've seen people just get harassed in my neighborhood. I've seen it on TV. I've seen it in not just on movies, in the news, where these things have happened, where people were wrongfully convicted of things that they did not do because law enforcement were so and all these people involved in the legal system were so thirsty for a conviction, so thirsty for a conviction. They didn't do their due diligence, and it led to young men having their lives taken away from them. I'm talking about 20 something years. Talk about what, the Marquette 5 or something like that in Chicago? Young boys who wrongfully committed of a murder that they did not do, got exonerated in like 2017. I met one of the guys that was involved in that case. Never did nothing, never did none of it. But spent more years in prison than he did on life as a free man. Was like 17 years old when he went into prison. Had to grow up in prison. And he was talking to me about it. Young man, older man named by the name of he's really a young man, Troshawn McCoy. Was it the Marquette 5 back in like 95 or something? Never did the crime at all. Was convicted of murder. Something he did not do because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And somebody just pointed him out and said he did it and he didn't do it. And DNA evidence showed that they did not do it. And they waited for so long to use DNA to find out that they did not do it. Now I'm sitting here thinking that Matias Reyes never admitted to this crime. Damn, would they still be sitting in prison? Would Corey Wise still be sitting in prison? Like, they still had his rape. They would still have the rape label on them for sure. Wouldn't be exonerated of the crimes, and they wouldn't be able to live their lives peacefully. And I'm just so proud of these brothers for going through this and still being able to be competent on the outside world and still be able to have a positive spirit and never break. Corey Wise could have broke a long time ago. They were trying to break him. He could have broke a long time ago, trying to tell him, when you going to admit to these crimes? And he's like, no, I'm not admitting to nothing that I didn't do. He's in solitary confinement, hallucinating by himself all the time, right? He could have went crazy a long time ago. He still didn't break. He's on the stand and they making him read, and he telling him he cannot read. And they just badgering. I can't really read. And I was just so heartbroken for the boy, man. These kids were scared. Man. But Ava did a great job, man. And this discussion has to be talked about. This is a topic that needs to be talked about and discussed. I really want to get on the actors too, man. The young man that played Corey Wise, Jarrell Jerome, excellent. Magnificent performance, man. Excellent, man. All the young boys did a great job. Seriously. They all did great jobs, man. All the actors did a great job. But that young man that played Corey Wise, man, I was captivated by his performance. He moved me. He moved my emotions. I'm not an emotional guy like that, but on stuff like this, man, things like this could happen. It could happen to me, my friends, my nephews, my brothers. If I have a son, I got to keep my son away from this type of stuff and make him aware of things that can happen, and pray for my son every day and protect him. As a father, if God shall grant me the grace to have a son, the blessing to have a son. This is a serious issue, man, and I'm glad that this miniseries was created so that people can see this is real. This is real life. This is not a figment of our imagination. Black people ain't just making stuff up. Hispanic people not making stuff up. This is really something this is really something that we've been dealing with for a long time, man. Black people, people of color, we've been dealing with this for a long time, man. I'm gonna speak personally as a black man. I know what it feel like when you walking down the street, police officers all around. You ain't did nothing. But because you don't got on a suit and a tie, you dressing like the kids in the neighborhood. You know, we wear earrings. We like to wear our jewelry. We like to wear Timberland boots and starter jackets like the kids in the neighborhood. They gonna look at me like, oh yeah, you one of them kids that's around here running wild. Because I don't have something, a label on my coat that say I went to school, I went to college, I went and got a master's degree. Not that any of that matters to say, oh, I shouldn't be victimized. You don't have to go to get a master's degree and go to college to not be victimized. You know, you're an innocent man. You shouldn't be victimized. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be victimized at all. You shouldn't be targeted if you haven't done anything. But I'm just saying, it's easy for the stuff like that to happen to me. Knock on wood, because I dress like the kids. I dress like the people in my environment. Not all the way, but I mean, we like to wear jerseys. We like to wear fitted baseball caps. We like to wear the Timberland boots, the earrings. We like to get fade haircuts. You know, and it's easy to get bunched up into one category because people looking like, again, the title was genius. When they see us, when they see them black boys over there, oh yeah, he got on the Timberland boots. That's him. Get him. Oh yeah, he got the earrings in his ear with the baseball cap. Oh, get him. Get him. Take him with us. Not too many questions asked. Next thing you know, you're in a situation you never wanted to be in ever in your life. Ever in your life, man. And this is a real thing, and this is not a game out here. This is not a game that we go through. This is real life for us. I'm proud of Ava for creating this. This was a masterful job by Ava. Masterful job by the actors. Great performances, man, and I'm proud of Ava for creating this product, creating this mini series for the world to see. Not just black people, not just Hispanic people, brown people, just for the world to see. To see what's going on and why we feel the way we feel about things. All right? And I'm not going to say this is not a video to villainize law enforcement, to villainize every police officer. But we know that wrong has been done over and over again by a lot of law enforcement, by a lot of police officers. And it's been ignored by other police officers who maybe don't have the same thought process, but they let it slide. They didn't say anything. And nobody really took a stand and stood down and stood in their convictions. Nobody stood in their convictions. Like these officers, a lot of officers didn't stand in their convictions when they knew something was wrong. Like Corey Wise stood in his convictions when he said, I'm not going to admit to nothing that I didn't do when his parole hearing was coming. His parole hearing is coming. He like, I'm not going to admit to something that I didn't do. The other young man, we out of prison. We never did that. You can't make us say otherwise. Crazy thing about it is when you're in prison, you saying you didn't do something. Everybody says that. So people looking at you like, everybody say that. Get out of here, man. Everybody says that. Such a it's just a sad case, man. Sad case. Same thing, and I was saying, you know, when I was talking about getting targeted because of clothes. I remember in Chicago, you know, it's no secret, Chicago has a history of violence. And again, not because black people are more criminal than any other group of people. Stop the BS with the black on black crime stuff. It does not exist. People commit crimes. People commit crimes against people who live in proximity to them. They don't go way on the different other side of town and commit crimes. And in Chicago, we know that black people live amongst black people, white people live amongst white people, Hispanics live among Hispanics, and Asians live amongst Asians, and so on and so forth. Right? But we know that crime exists in places where poverty is rampant. It is what it is. I wish the crime stopped. You know, so many different programs being created to stop the crime happening in the inner city communities where black people live and brown people live. But I remember when people were saying that they should bring in a National Guard. And I said, really? Really? Bringing in military green lights over policing. to the point where me and my homies can walk down the street, and because we got on our Timberland boots and our fitted caps and earrings, we get labeled as a young wilding rocket, wilding, one of those kids that were wilding and raucous because of what we wear. And things could take a turn for the worse. Over policing, people being too paranoid and too afraid, police officers I'm talking about, quick to shoot when they telling you to reach in your pocket and getting something out your pocket. I knew that bringing a National Guard, I'm like, that's not the answer. It would be over policing to the point where people, you damn near gotta wear a suit to not be labeled. Gotta wear a suit and tie to not be labeled, man. But anyways, man, back to this film. This film is incredible. If you haven't, this miniseries, I'm sorry, is incredible. It's 4 episodes. It's on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, watch it now. Let me know what you all think. Let me know what your thoughts about this film is. We can discuss it. I know I went on much longer than I usually do, but I had to talk this long for this film because I felt like it was that important and that impactful. I hope everybody enjoyed it like I did, and I hope everybody really got the message from it that you should have. And that we need like social justice reform. We need the justice system to be fixed so that everybody is on an equal playing field, and that everybody is treated fairly, things are done correctly and not unjustly. That's what we need. And for Black and brown people to stop being having their lives taken away unjustly, unarmed in situations. We need this movie will hopefully bring about the social, the reform in the justice system that we need. Machiavelli Mills TV, peace, y'all.